Now we're going to be working on difference of two squares. And the idea of two squares, it means you're going to have two terms. So it's going to be a binomial that has a minus between them. I'm going to start on number 2 because it looks easier. Now, in order to apply difference of two squares, you have to remember the rule that at the end, when you have a minus between two squares, the rule will give you something like that. Two factors, where one of them is going to be a minus b and the other is going to be a plus b. So keep that in mind, and let's try to apply it over here. If you take this one, for example, and you try to square root 4x to the second, you're going to get, what's the square root of 4? 2. What's the square root of x squared? Remember, since the index is 2, so 2 divided by 2 is a 1. So every time you square root is going to go, so you divide 2 divided by 1 is just 2 divided by the index 2 is going to be a 1, so 2x. So when you square root 4x to the second, you're going to get 2x. Now if you look at the 9 and you try to square root 9, what's the square root of 9? A 3. So once you do that, then your two values are going to be, you're going to have a 2x on the first and 2x on the second, a 3 in the first and a 3 in the second, and remember, you're going to have a plus in one and a negative in the other, and that's going to be your answer. So remember the rule, a minus b and a plus b, okay? Now, at any time, if you want to check your factoring, you can always put the original in y1 and the second function in y2. And if you graph it and they overlap, then it means that your factoring is correct. Now, let's go ahead and work on number 1. Now, again, you try to square root 144 x squared y squared. Now, when you square root 144, you're going to get a 12. And remember, 2 divided by 2 is a 1, so it's going to be just x. And 2 divided by 2 is a 1, so you're going to just get a 1y. Okay? Now, for the 9, also you have to square root 9, and square root of 9 is a 3. So, your first one's going to have a 12xy, and your second number is going to be a 3. One's going to be plus, one's going to be negative, and this is how you factor difference of two squares. I'd like to do one more with you. So let's do something that has, other than some x to the power 2. So this one, for example. If you try to square root, as you can see, these are two even powers, so it's difference of two squares. If you try to square root x to the 4th, so remember, 4 divided by the index 2, so it's going to be 4 divided by 2 is a 2. And if you try to square root y squared, it's just going to be 1, just 1. Okay, just y. So the first one is going to be x squared minus y, and the second is going to be x squared plus y, and this is how you factor using difference of two squares.